Now, the consensus that would rapidly, it seems to me, coalesce around the observation that services should help people come off reaches a rather uncomfortable point when one recognises what we're currently doing in relation to methadone. So we provide methadone as the most widely prescribed drug for dependent opiate use, and yet the research on that has shown that those drug users who received methadone and prescribed it, in all probability, remain drug dependent for rather longer, in fact considerably longer, than those individuals who didn't get it.
One thing we haven't mentioned, Neil, might be useful to think about is recovery. Is what your views are on recovery. I mean, is somebody on lifelong methadone recovered, or are they not recovered? And I mean, how far does that extend to to taking other drugs, or do you have to be drug free to have recovered?
And I do think that I mean, if as a result of our harm reduction policy in Scotland, so many drug users are now dependent on methadone, it does lead one to put forward the question, are those individuals still, should they be considered recovered, in recovery, drug-free, other than the drug that they're now dependent on? And there are certainly individuals who would say you shouldn't regard them as continuing in a state of drug dependency because they're now on a medication in much the same way that a diabetic is on insulin. And one should not expect these individuals to become drug-free. But I think that is rather stacking the dice in the favour of the prescriber to say, I'm going to prescribe an individual or groups of individuals who have a demonstrable propensity to become drug-dependent. I'm going to prescribe them a drug which has a high likelihood of the individual becoming dependent on it, and when they become dependent on it, I'm going to say, well, that's actually not dependency anymore, that's just me prescribing a medication, much as I would prescribe any other medication.
What is harm reduction?
And that seems to me just sophistry, because you've now got hundreds, thousands of individuals who are dependent on your medication, and I don't think that's a step forward. I think in part, potentially that's a major step back.
Okay, so what is harm